Yay Media Group.
Last year, I turned 50 years old, and I decided that turning 50 would be about actively seeking out new experiences, those things that we think it'd be cool someday, but looking at it through the lens of why not now? So, this conversation is about what's happened over the past year, what happens when we stop waiting for the right time and we start making the most of the time that we have, what changed, what surprised me over this past year, and what has stayed with me. A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Welcome back to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. So if you listened to this podcast about 1 year ago, you may remember a conversation that we recorded with my friend Ben McLauchlin for my 50th birthday. And we used that milestone as a reason for he and I to both talk about reflection, how rarely we're slowing down long enough to take full inventory of our lives. And sometimes it can feel uncomfortable to do that or to give ourselves permission to take the time to do that. And at the time, I had decided that my year of 50, it wouldn't be about one big celebration. There wasn't a big party or anything like that, but more about doing those things that we tend to put off, those experiences that we say we're going to get to someday. And sometimes it's because of the time that it's going to be or the cost or other things that are involved in it. But a lot of times it's really just because it takes our time and our attention and the choice to slow down once we're there. So really making that the conscious decision for the past year. Now, 1 year later, Ben and I are back together to talk about what actually happened over this past year. So it's not a checklist or a highlight reel, but really an honest look at when we say, why not now? What does this actually look like in practice? And what ended up mattering the most over the past year? So today we're having a conversation about what happens when we say yes a little more often and also a little sooner. What happens when we slow down once we actually get where we're going and let those experiences unfold and also allow people that we meet to help shape us in unexpected ways. So with that, welcome, Ben.
Hey there, Molly. Thank you for having me back on. And listen, I've looked forward to revisiting this discussion, but also just kind of reflecting on the last year and hearing from your point of view and just how this reapproach to life maybe shaped you and changed your whole paradigm and mentality.
I feel like us having this on the schedule was also like an accountability,
Yeah, it
Like
definitely
when
is.
we started it, in turning 50, it is a big milestone. And you're going to get there one day, Ben. You'll know.
I am there 6 months.
We'll
I'm
have to
taking
see.
notes.
But it's such a milestone and there's it's hopefully one of many. And people who are in their 60s or 70s are like, "Oh, come on, it's 50," yeah. But turning 50, it was a big deal, and it was something that I found I wasn't shying away from. I wasn't like, "Oh, man." I was like, "Wow, this is really cool," that it just felt like a milestone I felt proud of in a weird way because it was unexpected. If you would have asked me a decade ago, I wouldn't have thought that I would have that excitement for it. And so when you and I did our episode together, it was a lot of reflection on what things do we feel good about that we've done so far, and what things do we think, do we have anything that in hindsight we wish we would have done differently? And one of the things that really kind of resonated with me that we also talked about is like our camera roll is like receipts for our
Yeah,
life. And
that's right.
so kind of looking at that if you aren't sure how you spent your time, like what have I been doing with all my time? Go back through your camera roll and you can see what's important to you. So you and I kind of both did this. And really when we were talking and I was like talking about what the next year is going to be, sometimes you feel like you're playing pretend. Like, you feel like you're talking all big, like, oh, we're going to do this. We have these plans, but it doesn't feel real as you're saying it,
That's
especially
right.
in the beginning.
Just like we were talking about resolutions.
Yeah.
Like, some people do stick to resolutions or whatever goals for the year, the new year. And it is, I guess it's apropos that your birthday falls around the new year for these
Right.
purposes, and that
And so
people are trying to do a little bit of a reset and reevaluation. Potentially, some people are just to kick off a new year.
and you know how on social media, I think a lot of people, myself included, usually at the end of the year, people post, we do like kind of a recap video of fun stuff from the past year. I sort of
That's right.
held that until the end of a month later because I thought, you know what, instead of doing an end of 2025 recap, let's do an end of the year of turning 50 recap. So
That's
that's really what
perfect.
this is. Yeah. So this is, I think, us doing an audio version of what that
I
recap
love
is.
it. Now, let me
So
ask you this, Molly. Just before we dig into like your year 50 and kind of how the fruition and how what took place, because I don't remember if we discussed this a year ago, but like for some reason, I'm turning 50 myself. I've taken notes on our previous conversation on just our walk and talks we have throughout this year and being aware of your adventures, and you sticking to your goals and seeing them come to fruition.
that was new, that was something I'd never experienced before, and for me, that felt important more than, when I turned 40, we had a party, which was really fun, but I
Yeah.
thought, "I wanna do something that feels like that." Do you feel like you're having a midlife crisis?
The reality is maybe from our conversation a year ago, where my mentality is, I'm going to copy you, and I want to take similar small trips next for my 50th, because it's like I want to do it when I'm able. If I want
Right.
to hike K2, I can hike K2. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right, and
So
that
there,
was
yeah,
That was really what we said of the kind of what you said. It was like, why not now? Like, why wait? You know, because we've been in here since 2008. And so some of the pictures
that
hadn't
is
changed.
awesome.
So,
I
so
love
just
that,
refreshing
Molly.
that. And it was, so that sort of was a natural reflection at the end of the year as we're going through these photos, refreshing the frames around our house. And it was sort of that reflection. But, kicking off the year of 50, the first celebration I actually had was before my actual birthday of January 5th, but it was with you.
Whoop,
You were the
whoop.
first the first to actually celebrate
That's
me
right.
turning 50, and so we did our WGNO TV segment. You were doing a, better for you or not even better, but like a good for you, low carb, like almond flour based birthday cake, and
Yes,
you had gotten this cool decorations, and one of them was like it had, like, the happy 50th birthday giant candle. It had a lot of little sticks on it to, like, because it was so big to go into the top of the cake, and I was like, that was the first that I'd actually seen, like, a tangible "you're turning 50"
that's right.
celebration on that.
Coming, it's here.
It's
I
here.
felt very honored to be at that in that moment with you, and, also because, us in the studio together is meaning like a cooking studio, not this necessary studio. This is special too, but that is a very
Yeah,
special, a place for us. I think it's kind of a
yeah,
sacred spot where we've had some silliness and fun, so it was
yeah.
fun to revisit that together.
Yeah, so starting it that way, and then we actually took the cake that you made, you know this, but just sharing with our listeners. So Ben did, I mean, beautiful birthday cake, and you did a smaller version of it. So we actually had your cake 3 different times because we had it for the TV segment. Then we had it when our parents came over. So we had our parents over, which was a extended for Christmas, but it also kind of turned into an early celebration of my turn in 50. So we had your cake with your decorations on it again for our
Yeah,
parents over, and then the weekend after, Ben is not big on freezing his baked goods, but
that's
I'm
right.
all about
I was
freezing.
gonna say that. I had some anxiety with
You
that one.
had a lot of hesitation on that, and so we, froze it, and then we had another party with our my best friend Amy and then 2 other couples who basically friends who were like family, and we had a small dinner, that Brad coordinated with just us, and that was on my actual birthday, and so these close connections with you, with our parents, with Amy, with these couples, so we just had, like that was really kind of how we started the turning 50 and just with the people that really matter so much to you,
That's
and then you get into the big, "Okay, let's go see and do," and do this kind of stuff. So I
which
think
I love that. But it was also just it was the cake that just kept on giving.
was the cake that kept giving.
Like, I've
And it
never
was
seen a cake get spread out over so many little occasions.
And then the 3rd time we had some leftovers and I was like, "We can't eat all of this
It's like,
cake." So all of our neighbors also got some of your cake.
see, this is
So
amazing. It just
yes.
gave and
So
gave. But I feel
so
like, that was fun. I'm glad I could be there to kick it off. And I feel like this is a good segue. And I'm just going to be clear to everybody on here. Molly was a little worried about talking about a few of her adventures she'd have over the years. She didn't want to be tooting her horn too much or her opportunities. Um, and discussion we had is this is more of it's more of a philosophical or a paradigm shift in how we approach life and similar things we've already talked about a little bit. But I told Molly we should share some of them because we want to hear. What did you do? What did you learn? Who did you meet? What were observations? We want to know these things.
So I'm adding a quick note here for our listeners, a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. So Ben and I originally recorded all of this in chronological order of what actually the timeline of how it unfolded over this past year. But as we thought more about it, we decided to flip it to get to the biggest year of 50 moments sooner. So if you do hear us reference something out of sequence, that's why. I wonder if we should have started with this one, Ben, because this was the coolest. This was, um, okay, so this was, as we said it, this was the one that when you and I were first talking, and I felt like this feels like you're making it up. It feels like you're not even like, it feels like when you're a little kid playing pretend. And
Yeah.
I was like telling you, hey, like we want to go to Maria, which we've been to for Christmas and years
And let's
past.
just
Kind
keep building up what you're doing in Maria.
of,
Like, just give little tidbits.
what do you mean?
Well, we haven't said what you did yet, I don't think.
Oh,
But,
I
but we're
know.
building up to like
I'm pulling it
when
up.
we first started, like, we definitely knew we were doing this. When we started to go to Maria,
So that was our
and I
big,
would be
like,
like, I don't know what's in Maria.
this is the culmination of it. We said swimming with the whales and swimming with humpback whales in Maria. And so in other places, you may be on a boat and you'll see the whales, which is just like, if you haven't ever done it, it's really like, if you get the opportunity, like, you can't even believe that you're looking right here and there's whales everywhere. Maria, they're not as plentiful. They're not just everywhere across the horizon. But what's different about Maria is you're actually able to get in French Polynesia, you can get in the water to swim with the whales. And so we said, let's go there. They're only there for a short window of time, August, September, October. And so that was the big, like, culmination of this is turning 50. Like,
Yeah.
if we can have this experience. And so my best friend Amy came with us. She also turned 50 this past year. So it was Brad, me, and Amy. And it was really cool to be able to show her just our favorite place, besides our home. Maria is probably our favorite place on the planet. And the people that we've met there and the people over the years who've just become these, like, very, very special people to us and just a special place to us. And so having Amy there with us was really cool. And then being able to have that experience to swim with a whale. And so to kind of just frame it, you go out on a boat and they're very restrictive on how many boats can be in the water when the whales are in the vicinity, and only 3 can be. And not more than 5 people on the boat can get into the water. So they're very restrictive on any of that. And, you can't scuba dive, you can only snorkel. So you can't go down and there's no chasing of the whales and you're there. And if they
Yeah.
come by you, you're lucky for that. And so, the first time that we go out onto the boat, you also don't know what to expect. This is very much we have no idea what to expect. And it
Because
was
there's
one
a
of this,
possibility you may not even see a whale.
which happened the first day that we went.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so we had booked 2 times out on the water because what if we don't see one? And that's what
Yeah.
happened. Yeah. And so, um, I had really kind of like worked in my head of this is going to be a humpback whale is huge and it could be like seeing is it gonna be like seeing a bus under there? Like, what is it gonna be? A train car? Like, this is huge, and when you're in the water and there's nothing around you, what's it gonna feel like? Is it and the last thing that I wanted was to have, like, that panic or that anxiety or fear to, like, override what that experience was, and
Yes.
so that was one kinda going back to your question earlier, like, that mindset, I did put a lot of time into that of thinking through how will I feel? How will I react? And how do you dial it back if you do start to have these fears? Like, what is the thing that you're going to have to tell yourself? Because it can feel I knew it could feel really overwhelming. People have told me that they've cried when that happens because there's just so much
Oh,
you can't believe, like, it's such a unusual, bizarre experience to be as small as we are next to this vast, animal, and so the, I was really had tried to really I hoped that I would be able to experience it well, and so the first time that we slipped into the water, we thought that there was gonna be a whale there, and we get into the water, and we didn't end up the whale had gone away from where they
okay.
thought it would, but we at least got to experience what that was like to be in that water because
Yeah.
it was cobalt blue, but you could see through it forever. So we could
Awesome.
see each other perfectly, just like you would see someone 3 feet away from you,
Yeah.
and there was only those a handful of us in the water,
Now, were you
and
snorkeling, Molly, or scuba?
only snorkel because you can't
Okay.
scuba. Yeah, because scuba, someone could go down there and go after the whale, so snorkeling, you're
Yes.
only on the surface, and
I
so
gotcha.
as you're looking, like, you can see clearly and perfectly, but then you also don't know how far you're seeing, and that's a strange sensation, and you look down, and you can see the rays of sun from above just going straight down into the water forever. And so
Yeah.
you don't know how far down you're looking, you don't know how far away you're looking. And also there was like, oh, by the way, right before you get into the water, if you see a shark, because by the shore there's sharks that are they're not interested in people, but out
Yeah.
here there could be like a white tip shark that would be a concern to humans. And
I hear
so
you.
the guide with us is giving us this sound that he will make if there's a white tip shark, and here's what you do. So you're like, like, so you just
Yeah.
kind of have to accept that if this is how it all goes, that's how it all goes down. And so, but as you're out there in this vast water, you're thinking if a shark comes up, there's nowhere. Like, I mean,
No.
and so all of that in that moment, you just have to push it out of your mind. And so while we didn't see the whale that first day, just being suspended in that water and you're buoyant and you can just like float and seeing just this vast, like I'd never been experienced something just that vast and open and still.
Yeah.
And it was like, if we had not even seen a whale, to be able to have that experience was also really cool. So we
That's
get back
wild.
on the boat, and then a few days later was when we had the second outing, and we were really glad that we did. And it was one where when we got into the water, you could hear the whale and you could hear it making its sounds. And then you can't hear it from the surface, but once you're in the water, you can hear it. And or we couldn't hear it from the surface, I should say. And so once you're in the water, you hear it, but you could also feel the vibrations. And so you just hear and feel the sound of this whale. And what was cool is on the photos of it, you can see a semicircle in the water image.
Like a little sonar kinda thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and you
Yeah.
could feel that, so it's really, really cool, and so the whale's, like, super far down, but then they're coming up for air, like, every 15 minutes or so. So you're sorta just, like, floating, and you can know exactly where the whale is because you could tell if it's to the right of you, to the left of you, directly below you.
Because you're saying they're breathing their air bubbles?
You're feeling their vibration
You're
of the
feeling their
sound.
vibrations.
Yes. So you
Okay.
could feel the vibration and you could know kind of which direction. And at one point, I'm like, it is like directly like, but you could hardly see it. It was that far down. But you knew, I was like, this is like right below us. And this is like the coolest thing. Like, I didn't ever want to leave. I was like, this is just
Yeah.
such a still experience. And then it started to change the sound that it was making. And so on my social, I have some videos of it. And it kind of one was like this long, kind of like
I was gonna
rhythmic
say, Molly,
sound.
could you give us the sound?
I could try and it wouldn't be anything like it. It was like that, yes. It
Okay,
sounded like
good.
a long door opening and closing, like what you just
I
did.
imagine.
And it was just like you just knew it was so far down there. And then it started changing its tone and getting a little bit more clipped in its like sounds that it was making. And then I thought they hadn't told us this, but I realized something's changing. And then you could see gradually this whale was coming up. And so
Awesome.
the sound that they're making changes, or our experience was that as the sound changed, it was coming up. And so then you're like, wow, this whale is coming up under us. And so it comes up just right in front of us, and you're looking just eye to eye with
But,
this
like, how
huge
many
humpback whale.
feet?
It's
Because
hard,
what if it came up and didn't even acknowledge you and you were right under it?
I was like, right. It's hard to know distance
Yes,
in the
underwater,
water,
especially. Yeah.
but it would feel like it was like if we opened our front door, it was closer than the street.
So did you see the whites of its eye?
Yeah, you were
You
looking
know
at
that
it. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah,
okay,
you're looking
yeah,
at it, and it's just
that's
coming up
close.
really slowly, and it's looking at you, and you're level with it, and it goes up, and it gets air, and I
Oh,
mean, it
that's
was
beautiful.
the whole thing was so still and so peaceful, and, like but a few times you would kind of start to realize you're so small in this space,
Yeah,
and I would have to kind of just, like you just talk like, I would found myself kind of bringing myself down, like, if you found, like, because 'cause you're also, like your heart would start racing a little bit as this was coming up, and you're like but then you just remind it was for me, like, a staying really dialed into it and enjoying the beauty and the peace of it and not letting what might be our natural fears take over. And so
yes,
it was super special. So that was by far the coolest experience I think I've ever had. Really, ever, ever. So it
that's
lived up
pretty
to everything
amazing.
we'd hoped for turning 50. With Alaska, it was a little bit different. And so I'll say this too. With Alaska, we weren't sure if we were going to be able to go in the window that we were. And we were able to go right in the first part of July. Some things cleared up with work and that window opened up. And Ben, it was like 10 days before that we
Yeah,
decided we were able to go. And so everything came together in that short window of time.
and you didn't have
And
anything teed up or on hold?
nothing.
That's amazing.
And we really, really, really were happy with how that turned out, and that was one that's a little bit different because I think it's even though Alaska is so huge and vast, in the area that we flew into Anchorage, and we spent some time, kind of I think it's a little bit like it's east, I wanna say southeast of Anchorage, but I'm not looking at a map, but, so a town called Girdwood, and that was our jumping off point for the first half of it, and then there's a town called Talkeetna was our jumping off point the second half of it, and so we kinda used those as our bases. We were there for 9 days, and so we kinda split our time between the 2, and so in that area, there's certain things that are you can do salmon fishing or sockeye fishing where you're river fishing in the stream and you're doing they call it like floss fishing for salmon, and or other types of fish. But for us while we were there was that. And there's kind of different things that are there's bears, there's the dog sled, so there's the different glaciers, Denali. So
Yeah,
there's sort of it was like a little bit of a finite checklist that you had a little bit, like, it was okay, it sort of narrowed the scope. So, we sort of used that as our guide and then tried to figure out how we could book these, and how can we book these at the last minute when
yeah,
all these people they've had it booked a year in advance, and so,
yes.
it actually sort of benefited us, and we met some of them really lovely people as a result of that, and so, when we were looking for a fishing, like the river fishing where you're literally standing in the river ice cold, but you've got your waders and you're fishing for salmon.
There's a theme.
Those were all full, and we found one that was open, and we were actually in Dallas on our layover, still on our way to Alaska, still trying to find a fishing guide who had availability, and this one came open, like, showed on a third-party website. I said, "Brad, there's this one, it's like Captain Seth." Brad said,
Yeah,
"Well, how many reviews does he have?" "Well, only 4, but they're really good reviews." And I'm like, "And we can't be choosy right now. I think we've gotta, like, go with Captain Seth." And so his, company is called, like, the, Kenai River Guide. Well, it turns out he had worked there he had been there for, like, 4 years. He and his wife and kids had moved there from Utah, actually, but they had moved there. He'd been there 4 years as a guide, and he had just started his own company. And July was really the kinda still at the very early part of the season, so he only
yeah.
had 4 reviews because the
You were
season had
getting
really just
friends and
started.
family reviews, Molly.
Right.
That's
But
what happens when a company launches. They send it out and say, "Hey, I need some reviews."
I think he may have done that, but it was 4, and he was brand new on starting his own deal, and so but because of that, he also had that flexibility and could take us, and so,
Yes.
I mean, going down this river and the aqua blue water and it's so still, and we went in the afternoon, and so a lot of times the mornings are busier because people think fishing in the mornings, but you can
Yeah.
do it anytime. And the other thing about Alaska at that time of year in July is there's about 20 hours of daylight, and the 4 hours that it's dark, it's still only like a twilight, and
I
so we
gotcha.
went out there at like 2 o'clock in the afternoon to fish. We go down this river, and by the time we each did our limit, which was 6 fish, and he fillets them and does all this on the side of the river, and it's just you're sitting out there, it's beautiful. You're looking up, there's actual eagles flying above you.
It's
You're just
amazing.
like,
Are they just trying
"Where
to get
are we?"
scraps from the fish? Like after they've
A lot of the seagull type fish were
okay,
trying to get
are.
scraps.
Okay.
The eagles, I didn't see as much doing that, and maybe they
Yeah.
were, but I didn't see they didn't seem as eager about the scraps as like the seagull type birds. But so it was just like this surreal thing. Like it was so still, it was so beautiful, and you're just like, how is this even real? And it was,
Yeah.
it just was so beautiful. It was such a cool experience. So Brad had been the one, oh, like I'd love to do like a river fishing experience like out there in Alaska. And I was like, okay, we'll do it because Brad, it's something he wants to do. And then I
Okay.
didn't realize how much I would personally enjoy that.
I love
So
that.
that was probably like our first big step. And you're like, man, we're in Alaska fishing in the river and our waders and like
And y'all were hardcore.
it was really, really
Like you were
cool.
living the industry. You went
We
up
were in
and
the
worked.
industry. And so mentioning the afternoon was cool because at 2 o'clock, a lot of times you would think, well, the day's almost over. How do like fishing, it's all early morning, but we each caught our limit. By the time we got back, it was like 8 o'clock. It still was as bright as if it was like 3 o'clock in the
Yeah.
afternoon. It was crazy. So, I mean, that was just like experiences like that. And then getting to know Captain Seth and kind of hearing his background. And that was just really cool. And then from there, the other, I guess, kind of highlight, I would say, so a lot of people, some people who had lived in Alaska for a while had given us their guideline or their thing was if you're in Denali or like on the mountain of Denali, like you're not seeing it you're so much in it, like you don't really get the perspective of it. So their recommendation was to really spend more time in this town called Talkeetna, which has a beautiful view of Denali. And then in Alaska, people have these bush planes like we have cars.
Yeah.
Like they people take their plane to the next town to go to
Is that like a
Costco.
seaplane?
Yeah, 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 like a
Okay.
seaplane. I
Yeah,
say
okay.
bush, but it's probably technically called a seaplane. And so, they literally are like, "Oh, yeah, we take the plane into Anchorage to go to Costco." And I'm like,
Yes.
it's just the it's very, very different than, like, how we would ever view, like, small planes like that. And so, similarly, we thought there's some coastal areas that are different lakes that have kinda these marshy areas where bears hang out, and we thought, "We don't wanna book that because are we gonna see bears everywhere in Alaska?" Like,
Yeah.
we didn't know. So why would we didn't wanna book a special trip for something like this in case are they just everywhere? But they weren't. And so as we were, in Talkeetna, it's gorgeous, beautiful views. They have so much that you can do that whether it's helicopters or planes and day trips, and it sounds to me, that sounded like a big barrier at first. You have to take a helicopter there or
A
you have to take this little
barrier?
plane?
A
Yeah.
barrier?
Yeah.
Bear. Yeah.
Oh. But, it's like the idea of having to get on a plane or something, it just felt like but again, to them, it's as simple as hopping in a car and going and coming back. It's not having to go through the full airport experience or anything like that. There's
Sure.
there's these like the runway for these would just be like a small little road in the middle of the
It's
countryside.
like an
Like
Uber
it's like an
for
Uber.
people.
Yes, but it's a whole different culture around how they get around there. And part of the reason that we, I guess, probably knew, but you don't really understand it till you're there is there's entire like I don't even like huge swaths of land that have no roads to access it. So if you are going to go anywhere in that space, the only way to access it is through the air because you can't drive it. And so,
Yeah.
similarly, there we said, there's these marshy areas where the bears are just free and a very cautious, like from afar away, you can still be there and you're kind of like walking around with them and they're right there, but like again, you're doing it in a very mindful, respectful way, but and there's not a lot of people, but we thought we don't want to schedule that if we're going to see them everywhere. So as it became, 2 days before the end of our trip, we said, let's see if we can find it. Same thing. All of them were full. And so we've called around, and there was this
Molly, this would
one.
have stressed me out.
But it was also like,
At
if you
these
don't,
once in a lifetime events, you're like sitting on the tarmac in Dallas, flying to Alaska, and like, I hope I can get in here. Let's just keep refreshing. Like that stresses me out.
that's what we did. And part of it was we didn't know if we were going to be able to go until right then. And then the other part was it's still going to be a cool trip.
Yeah.
like regardless, and gosh, we'd really like to be able to do some of those things. And so the one with the bears and some of this other stuff that we thought they were awful, and so we found this one place that we called, and it's Sheldon Air, and or I
2
emailed.
stars. It had 2 reviews.
No. They've been around a really long time,
Okay.
but it is owned by a husband and wife, Udo and Tanya. I actually had Tanya on this podcast. She's so I'll tell you. So Udo, I email and say, "Hey, I know it's last minute, but do y'all have any availability?" He's like, "Yeah. How's Friday morning at 8:30?" Well, turns out he and his wife own the company, and if he's uh, okay. He's just gonna add that flight in. Like, he
Yeah.
versus what we also realized is a lot of the bigger companies, just like anything, when it's a bigger company, there's sort of a churn and burn. They've got, like, you walk in and there's 100 people in the waiting area, and they call 10 people, "You're in this group, 10 people, you're in this group," and you're that. Whereas this being, like, more of a mom and pop, they could be so nimble and just say, "Yeah, why not? Like, let's add it. Like,
I love it.
we'll go, we'll take you out there." So as soon as we walked into their hangar, I guess, and we met Udo, and he's Dutch, and he was a petroleum engineer for a career forever. And then as he learned how to fly planes, and then as he retired, he got really more into this. And his wife Tanya is a veterinarian, and she also flew planes. She's from Dallas, and they
Okay.
met through the Iditarod with the dog sledding. She was a volunteer veterinarian, and he was flying people to the spaces to do the care for the dogs in the races, and that's how they met. And she ended up moving there a couple of
That's
years
pretty
ago.
amazing.
So
And
as
now
soon as
you're
we
best
walk in,
friends with her
we are. So
'cause
she
that's
joined me
how
for
it
the
works.
podcast, and then they came in town a couple of months ago. We got into it with that
They
we
did?
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
we went
that's
and had
great.
dinner with them. Yeah. And being able to take that trip with him over the coast, like over this vast land of Alaska, just being in this plane and looking at it from that perspective and seeing Alaska and Denali from that perspective, and then just with him and the calmness and the care, and like anything that you had that was like uncertainties or like what's this going to be like, it all just dissipated. And same thing, like even when we landed on this kind of marshy coastline, he as we're getting out of the plane, it's like again getting out of your Uber. He gets out of the other side, and we hear him go, "Oh shit," like that, and he goes, "Oh." He had opened his
Did
door.
we just bleep you? Did
I
we just bleep
know.
you?
Maybe we say, "Oh, shoot." But that's what he said. He didn't say, "Oh, shoot." He said that. And then he goes
No.
and he apologizes. He said, I guess that was very professional, but as he'd opened his door, none of us had seen a bear coming out of the woods. And there's a big bear just right
Was it a
there.
grizzly? Did they identify it?
So they call their grizzlies and their coastal bears and I'm probably not going to say this as it's supposed to be, but they're the same type of bear. It's like the same species, but it has
Okay.
to do with where they live. And so grizzlies are more inland, and
Okay.
there's fewer of them, and they have less access to food, and they tend to be more aggressive. And this is
Okay.
just what I've read and what we learned while we were there. So apologies to anybody who's listening to this and is a bear expert and you say that's not right, Molly. Message me and I'll correct myself. But our understanding is that same species, it's how they live. And so the bears that live on like these coastal areas where there's a lot of access to fish. There's a lot of access to salmon. There's a lot of access to food of all types. There's they're not having to like fight for survival, and they're not having to fight for food, and food is much more plentiful. So the bears that are on these coastal areas are much more like docile is not the word, but they're not going to be aggressive and
It's just
and
not
such that
like, the apex predator we think of
right.
with the grizzly.
Right. And
So we
right.
still respect them that they are a wild animal in the wild, in their environment, and
Right.
we've been introduced into it.
And so that's my understanding of is that on the bears. We didn't have an experience with grizzly bears to be able to speak to that, but what we saw as far as the coastal bears, there was really not a lot of people. It's not like something like at Disney where you've got all these people. Or we also learned that there's some areas where there's like waterfalls and salmon jumping and bears grabbing the salmon out of the waterfall,
Oh,
and
that's fun.
it's very picturesque from what I've seen, but it's also like there's the boardwalk and everybody lines up and you get there and you take your
Oh,
picture. And so we didn't really want that experience. We really were like,
no.
let's just go where you could just sit and be. So then we were out there for 3 hours. And when we left, I felt like it had been 45 minutes. And when he said, okay, we'll head out, I thought, how's the time to go already? And I looked at the clock and I'm like, wow, 3 hours
Yeah,
passed. We were really just standing out there and just they were all around, but we were just kind of standing, the three of us together, and just watching them. And there was like a mom and her cubs. There was some running. I mean, they were interacting with each other. It was
that's
really, really
amazing.
cool. Yeah. And so that was one of those things that was sort of a last minute spur of the moment, but we were really glad that we said, kind of like, why not? Like, give ourselves that experience. It was also like, we can go into a trip with a lot of expectation. So like you said, the stress of not having it planned, it didn't really feel stressful because it was like, regardless of what we do, it's gonna be beautiful and we're gonna
Yeah,
see an area, a space of the world that we've never seen before. And even if we don't get to do any of those other experiences, being able to drive and see Denali and see these streams, like we still would be able to see it and experience it. So there was more that we did on that Alaska trip, but I think those were some of the standouts that were like really special that was like, man, I'm really glad that we kept pursuing that to try to find how that could land, and it ended up just also introducing us to just, like, these wonderful, like, lovely people who became people that we're staying in touch with
who
too.
you will probably visit again.
Right? Or they may come
But
here, right? I
or
think they're
they
gonna
could
come
go
to New Orleans a lot more.
yes. Um, and so, like, just with your and you still kept journaling even on
Yeah,
that part of the trip
yeah.
always. Do you ever, and I know we'll talk about, 1 or 2 other experiences, but do you ever revisit your journal? Because
Oh,
it would be
yeah.
fun to actually have some snippets of your journal quotes or something. I
We
know we
do.
can't get them right now, of course, but do
Yes.
you ever read through it?
We do. And so we haven't read through that one yet. And you know what I do for, especially when it was like Brad and I actually would record it. So I'd use like a voice memo
Oh,
and
yeah.
say it because sometimes, like if you're doing stuff, the discipline to sit down and write it might be harder. But if we
Yeah,
had car time or we had travel time, you could easily kind of just at least say a few of those notes and thoughts. And then you're using a voice memo to kind of categorize what it was by day.
I
And, like,
gotcha.
those people or those things that happened that you were like you're not gonna necessarily remember those details weeks later or months later. So, using that voice memo helps me with that diligence because I'm not always gonna be diligent about writing that journal entry. So, the next one that we'll cover, this was a new experience for us. This was our trip to Utah for national parks. And so we went to Bryce and we went to Zion. And what's really, once you getting yourself there is the hardest part to a national, or I would say the priciest part or the most, but once you're there, I mean, just so affordable. Like I think a day pass was $35 and you could get
Yeah.
like a week for like $70. So it's just really, and that's for a car full of people, whoever's in your, like, so it was
So
very,
did you pick up some strangers? "Come on, get in, y'all."
I don't want to misspeak that, but I do think it is for per car. I don't think it's per person. I do think it's per car. Sorry if I'm misspeaking that. And that
Uh,
would be a really good idea though to pick up the strangers and
yeah,
yeah, get them in with us. But those are two places that were always kind of like on our list that we would say, man, like we just always all the national parks are on our list to go to at some point. There's just, when you talk to different people who've gone and visited, everyone has their favorites, and a lot of times everyone has different favorites that they
yeah,
have. But Bryce and Zion are close in proximity to each other, and so we did the camping where you're in a tent, and it's called glamping, but I don't love that word. Um, it's it's rustic, and like the shower, you pull a lever. So you hold the
oh,
lever the
yeah.
whole time you're showering.
Were you
I mean
sleeping on the ground, or was there, like, a
no,
little
it's a
mattress?
bed. It's
Okay,
definitely a bed with a mattress, and the, there's like a furnace, so like a wood burning furnace, and so you put firewood in there and there's starters, or if you run out of that, like we used pine cones as starters. So you're the way you and it's we didn't realize just how cold it was. And Bryce, we were chilly the first night. We kind of kept that fire going through the night. The second night, we
And
woke
y'all,
up.
these are Louisianans.
Right. We woke up the second night and we were freezing, like
Yeah.
freezing. And I thought, we've committed to 4 nights of this, and this is really cold. Well, the next morning when we went outside, it had snowed the whole night and we had run through all the firewood, run through all that stuff. So it was like, it was very validating that as cold as it was, we were like, are we just such wimps? There was snow everywhere covering it. And so we were basically in a tent without heat at that point in the snow. So we said, okay, we feel validated here. But have you been to Bryce?
I have not, but mine, I feel like I'm copying you a little bit, not to all, maybe 50%, is that I do plan on, I believe in March, I'm going to Zion with my sister
Okay.
and her kids for spring break. And then we'll probably hit if they're that close.
Yeah. I want to say it was about, I should have looked at this a little bit more before we're doing this, but I want to say it was less than an hour and a half drive from
Oh
one to
yeah,
the
that's
other.
that's good.
And Bryce has these things that they call hoodoos. And so there are like these pillars and almost these like spears of rock that are just like thousands of them through. And it was just the rock formation was something that as you're looking at in these certain areas of Bryce, it was amazing. It was like, and when you were down in it, you're just the perspective of it was just really, really cool. And it's the type of a thing where you could imagine, you know, centuries ago, as someone would be approaching this before we even had called them national parks or knew like even what they were. But if someone's approaching it, you may not even realize this is what it is because it's almost like a canyon that you're getting into. So
Yeah.
from afar, I'm like picturing it that someone would look over there and think they're just looking across a plane. And then as you're on it and you look down, you're like, wow. Like, so I would definitely put Bryce
Like, I literally
on your
cannot
list.
even imagine what you're talking about. I think I'm gonna need to see it and look at photos.
Imagine like all these fingers, like all
Yeah,
these like
but you
thousands of
don't see them if you're looking, like, at the horizon, but
right.
if you're looking down, you see them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay?
Some of them would be sticking up a little bit maybe higher over it, but, like, you're once you get to it and you're kind of looking over this canyon, and these are just, like, filling this canyon. I don't know if I'm doing a good job of explaining this. Some
Yeah.
people who've been there may say, "That's not how I would describe it," but my sensation is you're standing on the edge, you look at it, you see and yes, our producer, Garrett, thank you, Garrett, is pulling this visual up so Ben can see.
So, and we don't have to keep digging into this, but so have you been to the Grand Canyon?
Yes,
Is it
yes.
like the Grand Canyon a little bit or no?
It's more compressed.
Okay, so
So
it's
the
not
the Grand Canyon is so vast, and I've only been to the Grand Canyon once, and, we stood on the rim of the Grand Canyon, and you're just I
yes.
mean, it's incredibly vast. This is more compressed, and it had all these little fingerling rock
Okay.
formations through it, which was what made it so spectacular because 'cause they're right there that's, like, right in front of you, kinda giving you this depth and this perspective, and it was something like types of formations that we'd never seen, and then you can hike down into them and around them and through them, and it's just really cool. So, that was cool. Staying in the tents, at night was,
Are
a
you a
really
camper? Are you like a tent sleeper? And also, is this why you chose to go there?
It's not why we chose to go there, but as you look around a lot of national parks, the places to stay are sometimes limited depending on the
Oh,
type of
yeah.
a park. And these are really just kind of a cool way to experience it. And you're kind of just like outdoors the whole time. And the places that have these, they'll often have like, they're having a kitchen. And so you're not going out to a restaurant, like you're eating the food there, but the food was really delicious and just like really simple and pure
Yeah.
and so going back to in my camper, we grew up camping a lot. So my
Okay.
dad, we would go camping, like tent camping and like really rustic camping. So this wasn't that, um, but it was sort of like you know a modified version that let us still feel like we were connected with the outside. You still have a zipper for your tent and stuff like that, but then you actually have a mattress and you have a
Yes.
furnace right here that's going to keep you warm. And so it was definitely um, it had much more conveniences than tent camping.
Yes.
But when I hear glamping, you think about like a chandelier in the middle of it. It wasn't what I would
I think
consider that.
glamping is like having a car. I'm just kidding. Like you were sleeping in like a car or something, or
It was
car
so
camping.
cold that night that it was snowing. I was like,
Well,
maybe
I
we
feel
go
like it
get
was
in the car.
perfect for you for those temperatures, for Brad and you,
Yeah.
to have that space.
We drove to Zion, and Zion was also some just really cool experiences, and so when you're there, they have something they call the Narrows, which is water, and you get waders and, like, you get it from, like, a they have, like, these kind of outfitter companies that you get the waiter so you can walk through the water without being soaked. We did see some
Okay.
people there who had apparently chosen not to do that. So it was, and the water is pretty cold, but once you
Yeah.
have the proper like apparel and equipment and shoes for that, it wasn't expensive. It was easy. You show up, they get you your size. It's sort of like bowling shoes, like they hand it to you, you get it,
Yeah.
you rent it, you use it, and then you just bring it back at the end of the day. And so um a lot of the stuff that we read about the Narrows kind of made it seem more complicated or more challenging than it was. It was just really, really cool. So these really high formations on either side of you, and then you're kind of going through the water in between that. And it was super manageable, beautiful, peaceful. It was just a cool experience. And so we were especially glad that we did that. And so we stayed in Zion for 2 days. And unusual for us, I don't think that we had any specific personal connections that we met along there.
That's what I
We
was gonna
were
say, say because you historically will go even revisit places because 'cause you've met friends on your journey
right.
or people.
What we did from there, we were going to coastal California, a town called Carpinteria that we liked. It's sort of outside of Santa Barbara. It's like the less developed space. It's kind of overlooking just the ocean, and it's a beautiful, but still very laid back space called Carpinteria. It was maybe just a less than a like 5 to 7 hour drive from Utah to the California coast, and so
So
that
you
was cool.
drove from Utah to the coast. Which I think is awesome.
Yeah, you love driving, like you love
I do, and
car
I know
travel.
that y'all don't drive as much or take road trips
Yeah,
like this, so I think it's great y'all had that time in the car just to
it
see the
was
topography and the
yes.
landscape.
Yes. So we loved that, and it was, maybe not the most efficient use of time, like, you're not multitasking while you're on a plane or any of that kinda stuff, but
Yeah,
for us, it was something that I mean, we'd never done it before, we'd never seen that space before, so to experience that landscape and just having that quiet, like, that downtime in the drive, like, we loved that, and then, you know, through that, we started with each of these kind of things that were new for us, journaling
I
and
love
and
that.
kind of journaling what stood out to us. Each day we would just like write a little snippet of like what we did, what happened that day. So that was
Yes.
sort of dipping our toe into it. They weren't the first one of the national parks was a little bit more subdued, but that was our first new
Yeah.
experience.
No, I think in just kind of reflection though on these amazing experiences, and I think a theme I'm hearing from you is just that you went to places you've never been before. You kind of went in with that out expectation. Now you had been to, and forgive me, Moreo, but you had
Maria,
never
yeah,
had this. Am I
right,
saying that right?
yeah,
But you had never had this experience, even though you probably had heard about it or knew
right,
it could happen. Um, so what I'm just wondering is like, are there any words of wisdom to share? Like, I know we've also talked about like curiosity leading some of this year.
yeah,
Like, obviously, you're going to a place you never been to. You were curious about the whales. Alaska, it seemed Brad led that one more, but you still had the curiosity to go and say, well, what is this fishing about?
yeah.
And in that experience.
So I think curiosity is a big one. Curiosity, learning, like going without the agenda and going without a sense of what has to happen for it to be perfect. And
Yes.
it's sort of like going for the whales. Well, gosh, like we that first time we were disappointed when we came out of the water, like, man, we really hope we get to see a whale the next time. But we
Yeah.
also all agreed if we don't get to see a whale, that
It was
experience
amazing.
was amazing. And
Yeah.
so while we may hope or want certain things to happen or unfold in a way, just accepting what it's going to be, because even if you are in these places and what we have lined up or what we have on that agenda doesn't unfold exactly as we hope, it's still probably going to be a pretty amazing experience. I was hearing someone for holidays had said, one of the kind of anchor points for holidays is putting something in your mind that if this one thing happens, if you get together with that one friend or family that you don't usually get to see over the holidays, and y'all get to do this one thing together, it might be going to your favorite place for lunch or going for a walk and talk or even just having them over for coffee and catching up. That alone can be your enough. That's enough to
Yes, that's
qualify
right.
for like a really good holiday season. And I think something like that mindset when it comes to travel too, because we put these, we're seeking out these moments that everything must be documented or it's Instagram or it's social or whatever.
That's right.
If we just get there and we see in Alaska those beautiful river streams or those beautiful glaciers or these things like you can see that and nothing you don't have to have a special excursion or experience or the same with this, like, just to be in that water and have that stillness, that quiet and that stillness, and it was, like, the biggest space, but the most cozy, smallest space, and, like, that can be enough,
Yeah,
and we all agreed. We were like, "That's that." Up until the moment we saw the whale, we all said that was the coolest experience we'd ever
yeah,
had, so, I think just letting it unfold and having a general game plan and planning where we must plan, but allowing
yes.
enough unscheduled time for just conversations to happen, people to happen. We won't get into it, but we also, we met people with the whales experiences that have stuck with us and
But
learning
you're good
about
at that,
them.
Molly.
But learning about
Like,
them
you're
and
good
how
at that too. So I think even being open to those like, I backpacked Europe, right after college. Now, I had the hostile mentality. I was poor, meaning I could go over there, but I was living in the cheap hostels. I was eating gelato for every meal in Rome, but you're meeting people who have a very similar mentality. That they wanna
Yeah,
meet people with common experiences,
yeah,
adventures, share life philosophies.
yeah,
But I will tell you, as we talked about in the beginning, I'm almost 50. I don't always either I'm not putting that energy out, but I don't always get those life experiences. I feel like you do whenever you're open to that.
yeah, yeah, and
I feel
some
that.
of it I mean, I think about some of the people and you're just like, I have so many
Yeah.
questions and I have to remember, what Brad says, layer your questions like 3 at a
Yes.
time because I wanna know so much about, like, the person who's living in Maria as a marine
Yeah.
photographer. How
That's
does that
right.
happen? Like, what got you here, So, there's just so much interesting people and interesting careers and professions and how they're choosing to live their life that might be so different from ours, but also, wow, really cool. So,
And
yeah,
that's inspiring to me, just like if I'm gonna do these types of small trips for my 50th, um, we talked about just being in the now and why are we waiting and being present. But mine also would be to make sure I'm just for me, a goal would be, if I set a goal, would be to be open to whatever comes my way
yeah.
in the form of a human, in the form of an animal, in the form of a life experience, maybe
Yeah,
even in the form of food.
yeah, yeah. And I think, there's so many limitations that there's the why not now is
Yeah.
if we can, let's do it.
Yes.
There's so many times that we do really have these limitations, whether it's families, our immediate families, or it's parents. You and I, we said that earlier, caring for our own parents. There's times that you can't do that. Like you
That's
can't
right.
step away. And so this idea of why not now is not always gonna apply. So, when you
Yeah.
do have that time or that little window or that kind of little nugget, then trying to take it, and it can be something that is, a smaller scale. For us, the whales was huge, 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 huge.
Yes.
And it could be also doing something that is something that you've thought, "Man, that'd be cool if we did that." Like the airboat tours, here
That's right.
outside of New Orleans, like something like we've never done that. One of the things we did just, last year for the first time, gosh, since we were children, was, doing a riverboat ride in New Orleans. We did,
Yes.
like the Steamboat Natchez or the Creole Queen and seeing the city from that perspective. And so those are things that, whatever it is that you've thought, hey, I want to do this, or the things that we're talking about, I think part of my hesitation that you mentioned earlier was some of these are really, really big things. And I know that. And we planned it for that. And it was a big thing for turning 50, but they're not all that, and starting with tight and family and you and friends that are like family. Like that's what's really like what kind of anchors and solidifies. And then from there, what are the experiences? And it could be something closer to home. It could just be just something new and something that's a new experience that's going to bring a different perspective that you haven't had before. And what is that?
No,
Big or
I hear that
small?
because I even think for my 50th, and Molly, you'll be involved in something. But,
I was secretly
like
hoping
mine
so.
is I don't know that I'm gonna do anything international,
Yeah.
but I do want to it may just be that my small trips are going I have friends all over the country,
Yeah.
but maybe going to their cities to visit them and spending
Yeah.
a weekend with them and reconnecting in my 50th year with people who have been along my journey, who have seen me in different phases of life and that I love dearly.
Yes, yes, I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Amy, as her 50th birthday was officially in April, so she was in New Orleans for that weekend. We did a glass blowing class.
Oh, I love that.
Right, and so that type of a thing was totally new, whole different experience. We got T-shirts made that or not made, but we got T-shirts that said 1975 and wore those all the different places to get our
That's
1975
awesome.
shirts. But yeah, so that type of a thing that you're like, if you've been thinking it and you have something that can be what you're doing for yourself that puts things in a whole different perspective or introduces just a new side of the world that you haven't seen. It's just about it doesn't have to be more, 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 and it doesn't have to be the biggest thing, but it's something that you've been thinking, "Hey, I'd like to do this," trying to find that time at least at least, on some type of regular rhythm to where you're giving yourself these experiences, big or small.
That's right. I love it.
All right, Ben, thank you for walking me through this, talking through this year of 50 with me. It's been nice to kind of do a reflection of where it actually landed versus the what we were talking about and had on the horizon.
Well, that's great. Well, no, thank you. It's just been fun to watch this year. And we've talked about this before. Molly and I have a little walk and talk. So when she would get back from these experiences, we would have a chance to rehash or even on social. I was able to see some of the photos and all that good stuff. So it was fun to keep up with it.
And yeah, I'm excited about you turning 50 and kind of what you bring into your world that year. And I'm excited to be involved in as much of it as you want me to be.
I'm glad you are, Molly.
Yes.
Thank you. I actually think I am too. I
Yeah.
think I am.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
embrace it.
I have
It's
to
it's
think about it, but
cool.
I think I am.
Yeah, I feel like 50 is the new 30. Maybe just we're biased because we're 50
That's
or
what I
you're
was going to say.
close.
Age is a number. I think you and
Yes.
I are pretty youthful in how we approach life. So,
Yeah.
but I am looking forward to the next year and just being very intentional, similar to you did with your experiences, but just being intentional and just reconnecting with people that I love dearly and seeing them potentially in their space, which will be great.
And and we'll say too, there's a lot that makes it hard. There's a lot that's hard to turn off. And sometimes like my brain is like go, go, go. We're like we have our just our automatic calendars and our to-do lists and that stuff
Oh,
is in the
yeah.
forefront of our brain. And so it's not that we don't have that. Like that's all there, but it's making that conscious choice to push that aside. A lot of that stuff can wait. Like what we're doing, does it have to happen? Like the things that are on your to-do list, does it have to happen now? And in some cases, the answer is yeah. And we don't have the option. We don't have the
That's
option
right.
to say, why not now? But when we do, give yourself just that little bit. I just, the
I
anything that's
agree.
going to be a new experience, just gift yourself with that, whether you're turning 50 or not.
And listen, and it doesn't have to be all these trips. It could, like you
Yes.
said, it could be in the moment of having coffee or a
Yeah.
meal with a friend you haven't
Right.
seen in a while in your own city,
Yes.
or going to things locally.
Right.
So
Right.
there are ways you can make it intentional. And also, does it even have to be your 50th?
Right. It's anytime. Right. Anytime. Gift yourself with this all the time, not just on a
That's
big
right.
a big
Now that
milestone
was kind of a
birthday.
revelation at the end here. Like,
Yes.
okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ben. I'm going to think about our next one that I'll rope you in for our
Can't
next
wait.
podcast.
Thanks,
All right.
Molly.
Thanks, Ben. Love you.
Love you too.